In this episode of Ranges, Backstops, and Berms, we're in the Pacific Northwest speaking with a true master of the trigger finger. And later on, I get tuned up by the man himself. All happening right now on Ranges, Backstops, and Berms. "15 minutes north of Portland, Oregon, on the Interstate 5 freeway, there's a blink-and-you-miss-it town called Ridgefield. If you did stop by, you'd see white-capped peaks in the distance with names like Mount Hood, Mount Adams, and Mount St. Helens. But we are here to examine another peak. His name is Gary Crane, and he is the owner and operator of Marksmanshipconsultants.com. As often occurs when talent meets hard work, you find accomplishment. Gary's collection of shooting awards includes medallions, trophies, and plaques that span 40 years of dedication to a craft. But with Gary's deep sense of humility, it's sometimes difficult to get to the heart of why he is so good, since he would rather credit the wind than himself.
It was a real windy day.
Oh, wow.
And I'm the only guy on the line that shot semi-wad cutters. Everybody else shoots full wad cutters. I believe the ballistic coefficient helped me a little bit because their groups are more to the left than mine. So
Wow.
I always kind of credit maybe my win, but at the time I wasn't really considered a top contender. If you had to rank me, maybe 10th in the state. So there's a lot of guys better than me.
Wow, not that many.
So, when we finally arrive at one of Gary's special accomplishments, of course, I had to screw up the moment.
Semi-auto. So I'm the first person to ever become distinguished in both Canada and the United States in semi-auto and revolver.
That's awesome.
And did you get that one, or did somebody get that?
I just bought that.
That's nice.
If someone were to come to you as a new shooter or someone who was interested in trying out firearms before they actually purchased a gun, what type of a course would you provide them?
Well, I guess with a lack of a better name, I call it Handgun Selection.
Okay.
And I bring out several handguns, and I try to cover as comprehensively the 4 different platforms of pistols and the 2 revolvers.
Okay, clearly that's an experiential class. You want people to actually go through and kind of feel the differences of what the different types of handguns are.
Yes.
And so is that a process that you would do sort of in a classroom, or are you doing that out on the range?
Classroom.
Eventually, the Marksmanship Consultants Handgun Selection course does go out to the backstop, where students get to test fire various modern firearms. Gary told me about several students who had showed up for classes with firearms they had never fired before, only to discover after shooting with Gary that the gun they chose wasn't the best option for them. So it's best to go through a selection class before you ask somebody you don't know what the best gun for you is. Would you agree with that?
I'm just saying, you walk into a gun shop or go on the internet, whatever, be educated.
Yeah, well said.
Gary can troubleshoot the minutia of somebody's shooting issues, somebody's grip issues. He can find those things. He found some things today that I was not doing properly.
Okay, I want to transition to talking about your signature course related to marksmanship. Are these 4 hours that are taught all in one day,
Yes.
or is it something where you
consistent, all one day?
Okay, so it's a
Yes.
1 day, at least 4 hour class,
Yes.
but you're willing to spend more time with
If
folks.
they want to extend past that, we can.
Okay.
And quite often, if you get multiples and there are lots of questions, then things slow down.
Okay.
You got to answer questions.
Sure.
And so in order to get through the material, it does take a little longer, 4 hours, but generally 4 hours will do it.
Okay. For your marksmanship class, would there be any prerequisite classes?
Nothing.
So would this be a class that somebody who brand new, a new shooter could come and
Yes.
get the full benefit of this 4-hour
they can.
marksmanship class?
Doesn't matter what they bring.
Okay.
There's some guns that are difficult to train. You get a little micro compact gun with crude sights.
Right.
Very difficult to learn marksmanship with a gun like that. But
Yeah.
most firearms, if you have a set of sights on there and a trigger make it go bang, it'll work.
Okay.
Yeah,
Excellent.
you don't
Okay.
need a special tool.
So talk to us about how the flow of that class and how each of the topics, without teaching the class here,
Sure.
just sort of the topics that you hit on and what people could expect if they and when they come
Well,
through the class.
we talk about the fundamentals of marksmanship, of course, and every instructor teaches these things. You have your grip and your stance and your breathing, and you have your sight alignment, and you have your trigger control. Those are the 5 basics.
Right. Sure. So you kind of stick with the 5 basic components.
No, I stick with 6.
Stick with 6. All right.
I have one more.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Gary went on to talk about his 6th fundamental of marksmanship, but we aren't showing it here because, hey, this is Gary's hard-earned knowledge. It is best learned in person and in context with the rest of the training. So, if you want to know more about Gary's 6th fundamental, reach out to him at marksmanshipconsultants.com. And now back to the show. Talk to folks about what is a natural body function and how you can...
It's a skill that they possess any given time.
Yes. So where do you go from there? Is this a class that is initially taught in the classroom and then
Yes.
ends up outside?
Yes. I go through the whole routine here. I talk about the 6 fundamentals, and we write them down. We talk about them in detail. And then, as I'm doing that, I introduce them to 5 principles that are unique to my training.
Once again, we're withholding the details of the class. When I went through this course with Gary a number of years ago, it was humbling how deep some of these subtopics can go. Any more about it, and, well, you see the website above. Interesting. It's really interesting.
Yeah.
Now, I want to say that I know, and you would never say this, but I know that there have been some law enforcement officers who have struggled at their agency with shooting, and to the point where, and I know this for a fact, to the point where some of these individual officers were looking at perhaps even becoming unemployed because ongoing qualification with a handgun, your issued handgun, is a condition of employment, and if you fail to meet a standard, you can be fired for that. Now,
Yes.
having said that, that's very rare, and that usually involves some concerns. And when it comes to the point where the in-house law enforcement firearms instructors can't resolve that problem around here, those folks go to you.
They have, yes.
And you've been successful in
Yes.
helping to improve their skills to where I believe every one of them that you've come across has maintained their employment
Yes.
and become more successful shooters. So I wanted to give you kudos for that, to say that's success that speaks for itself. Some people have asked us about the name of our show being called Ranges, Backstops, and Berms, and what exactly is a backstop? Well, this is a backstop. Marksmanship Consultants has a shooting area which uses a single backstop. Technically speaking, it is built to be a caliber-specific ballistic backstop. In this case, it's a man-made structure where the top stands about 22 feet high, is about 30 feet wide, and the whole thing is sunk into concrete at its base. It was designed to meet national shooting range standards when it was constructed. Although the backstop will block bullets up to a certain caliber, the majority of the rounds fired are intended to be caught in the armor-plated steel bullet traps near the base, as the targets are placed directly in front of them. So, let me explain how this works. In every episode, I asked the featured instructor to put me through one of their drills or courses of fire. My assurance to the audience is that I will shoot it cold on camera. That means no warm-up, no practice shots, and no excuses. What you see is Gary performing a classic firearms training technique called coach shooter. It's sometimes referred to as shoot-talk therapy, and when done properly, can help a shooter break through their plateau. But when you have Gary Crane as your coach, it's different. If I'm allowed one Star Wars original trilogy reference, I would say the experience is like navigating the swampy forest of Dagobah while having Yoda as your guide. And what exactly is Gary telling me? He's telling me what I needed to hear at that moment in time, which would be different if you were standing here instead. You see, while I'm processing the next shot, he's processing 24 components of my shooting platform, from the position of my hands and arms to my breathing and trigger press. A master instructor sees things that others don't.
Gary, this is great stuff. It works really well, very solid delivery, and I want to tell you thank you. For those of you who are thinking about coming out to Marksmanship Consultants, come on down and beat my score or beat the size of the group, because Gary will happily tune you up like he tuned me up. Gary, solid class, man.
All right.
Thank you.